Adventure in Pipeman on W4CY Radio.
This is the Pipeman here on the Adventures of Pipeman W4CY Radio, and this is our Positively Pipeman segment with the pet health guru. And man, we're going to talk today about cat nutrition. First thing I have to ask you, Bill, right off the bat is, why is it that dogs like to eat cat poop?
Because it's more nutritious than dog food. It's that
simple. Wow, that's wild. So tell us a little bit about cat nutrition, because I think most people don't even really know. They just give their cats, they buy something off the shelf, they don't even know, and they just give it to them.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem. I mean, commercial pet foods, of course, have been around for about 75 years now. And it's just a convenience food is all it is. It's it's not nutritionally sound. It's not going to provide them with an ultimate sense of health or anything of that nature. The problem with cats, they're very unique animals in that they're obligate carnivores, which means they can only basically break down animal fats and proteins. So that, with that being said, they need a meat diet. They're also, they originated in the desert. And because of that, they have to get all their moisture from their food. They don't drink very well out of a dish or anything of that nature. So they're always, when you're feeding dry food, they're always in a state of dehydration. And of course, that creates all kinds of problems with the kidney and the liver. That's why we see so much diabetes, why we see so much kidney failure, UTIs in cats. It should just be a raw meat diet. And when we stop and think about it, we're the only creature on the face of the earth that cooks our food. And, if your choice was only to have dry cereal every single day of your life, just stop and think about that. How long would it take to kill somebody?
Only if it was Count Chocula, then I'd be good. I could deal with Count Chocula the rest of my life. But if you gave me Cheerios for the rest of my life, I might become a serial killer. Just saying.
There you go. No pun intended, I know.
Right? Now, yeah, right? I did, you said that, and I was like, oh, crap, I did that and didn't even notice I did that.
Yep.
So here's a question I have for you. I don't see it nowadays, but used to be that cat owners only gave their cats milk, not water. Why is that? And is there a reason why it's not as popular today?
Well, first off, our milk that you buy in the supermarket is no longer milk. So the animals quite often reject it. When it used to be whole raw milk, that was fine. It was actually very nutritious because we're doing it as part of the overall feeding program back then. And so what nutritious foods did we want that were animal-based? And milk happened to be at the top of the list. Of course, our water today, too, is so highly toxic with chemicals and that sort of thing. That's why these animals will not drink the tap water, because it's just really horrible. We have to keep the body hydrated, so we do need good water. Living water is found in live foods, and that's what, raw meat basically is a living food. And the other thing is you have to do variety. You have to do a rotational diet. Every day should be something different, because every food brings different nutrients to the table. And it also, food is a dual transport system. It's bringing in nutrients, but it's also taking out very specific toxins. And of course, with our animals living basically in such a toxic environment, I mean, stop and think. They live on the floor. You're using all kinds of, deadly chemicals on your floor. It was funny. I may have mentioned it on the previous show, but when we look at even the dishwashing detergents and that sort of thing that we have, the toxicity of that leaves a film on the dishes and on your utensils and all of that. So every single day, you're just getting more toxins, more toxins, more toxins. And then, people go around sticking these stupid, scent things into their plugs. They make the room smell good, and it's right at nose level for your cat or your dog. And so they're breathing in these fumes every single moment of every single day.
And I want to add to this because I'm sure there's people out there listening or watching that like think that it's being dramatic and like what's the big deal, or even people would reference what we did when we were younger. Oh, we drink out of a garden hose. What's the big deal? And we know what the big deal is today. But here's the thing: is like you you're toxifying these animals, and they don't even have a choice. That's number one.
Right.
No, number two, I'm going to give a perfect example of what you talked about, the dishes. Okay. So I was in Bali, as you know, for like 2 to 3 months. And they have what's called their Bali Belly, which is the same as Mexico, Montezuma's Revenge. It's basically don't drink the water. Okay. And otherwise you get food poisoning. What's interesting is I did have Bali Belly like 3 times while I was there, and I was extremely careful. Here's the problem. If one drop of that tap water gets on the plate of the food you're eating, you get Bali Belly. And that's how it happened to me one time. It was like basically there was probably just a drop of water on the plate. There was nothing wrong with the food. There was nothing wrong with anything else. It was from washing the plates.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the thing is you get all these buildup of all these different chemicals, and they all interact completely differently. The EPA lists something like 120,000 different chemicals today. But good news is that they did say 9 of them are safe. Our good government, really on top of things. But that's just it. I mean, there's so many different chemicals that are involved in this. And of course, what they've actually did a number of years ago, they were actually testing the cats for toxins. And the number 2 toxin that they found in their body was flame retardant. Because the cats love to lay on the carpet, love to lay on the furniture, all of which has been treated, with all these toxic chemicals, to prevent a fire. So we're going to prevent the house from burning down if it does catch fire. And in the meantime, we kill everything in the place.
So I just thought of something. I'm kind of curious, and maybe other people are curious. I'm highly allergic to cats. Question is, could that chain and could that also be part of what they're being fed? And if they were fed properly and with the right nutrition, maybe people allergic to cats wouldn't have such a problem. Is that true?
Yes, that's true. Basically, cat dander, of course, is part of the cause of that allergen because it's a dust-like particle. But the basic part on that is that the skin is a major detoxifying organ. So all the poisons that are in the foods, in the environment, everything else that went through the cat's body are coming out in that toxin as a toxic dust, basically, is what it really is. And of course, we're exposed to it too. Through the same chemicals that are in our environment that they're living in. So now you're kind of getting a double dose or a concentrated dose of it. So, if we detoxify and we make sure that our cats are being fed clean, not being over medicated, all of that sort of thing, most people that were allergic to cats no longer are. It just goes away.
Wow. And to go off the subject of nutrition for a bit but stay on the cat thing, I wanted to know, it just came to me, what's your opinion of the hairless cats?
Another genetic wreck. That's what it is.
That's what I was thinking. It's like, that's what I'm thinking. It was like, that's mad science, Frankenstein stuff, right?
That's what it really is, unfortunately. We've, with all of our pets, we keep trying to, we love the dogs, we love the cats, but let's change them. What that makes no sense to me unless you were doing it for an economic reason. Like when we breed cattle, of course, we're breeding dairy cattle for milk. That's one characteristic. Beef cattle, obviously, we breed for heavy muscle so we get good steaks. That's a little bit different. That's a lot different than, most of the dog and cat breeds, especially cat breeds, because cats really, except for farm cats, and ferals that are keeping the mouse population, the rat population, the lizard population down. they don't really have a functional job. I mean, what functional job can a Persian cat really have? It can't. It's lucky it can clean itself.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. What is the difference between the different cat breeds and what their nutritional needs might be?
That and the basic needs are going to be the same. But when we look at commercial foods, they're deficient to start with. So you take a long-haired cat, obviously needs more fatty acids, the aminos and stuff like that, and more protein, collagen to grow a good heavy coat. Same thing with animals that live in the more northern climates. They've got to be able to build that winter coat, so they need the high amounts of good animal protein and fats to maintain that. And when we talk about fats, everybody thinks, well, if I feed them too much fat, they're going to get fat. No, they burn fat. They don't burn sugar like we do, but yet commercial pet foods are nothing but carbohydrates and sugar. And cats are very, very addictive. That's one of the reasons why when you try to switch the diet from XYZ, you have trouble. Cats are finicky. Well, they're not finicky. They've been hooked on drugs, basically. Is what it is.
Yeah.
And that's the synthetic sugars, the aspartames and neotames, all of those. And so each company has its own, so that therefore the cat will not accept a competitor's product.
Well, and to validate that point, my youngest daughter, I've said before on the show, she has gotten big time into cats recently. And I was at her house, and she's very into researching what they can have. What she's like OCD about what they can have, what they can't have. But she does give them one thing that, in a very small amount, that I watch these cats freak out when they see it, like just freak out, and then eating it. Whipped cream. What is it in whipped cream that is driving these cats nuts?
It's the sugars. It's the synthetic sugars. They're addicted to it.
Huh. That's interesting.
Whipped cream isn't whipped cream anymore. I mean, most of the whipped cream supposedly on the market doesn't have any cream in it at all.
I know, right? That's weird.
It was like I saw an analysis on I think it was Subway on their tuna subs, and they tested the tuna fish, that they put on the subs itself. There was 0% of tuna, actual real tuna, in that slurry of whatever they put on there.
Wow. That's wild. So what other sage advice can you give our listeners about how they should be feeding their pets and their cats, and what they should be doing to have a healthy, long life for the cats and stop giving them poison?
Well, the main thing is not feed them the poisonous commercial foods. That's number one. Number two, that rotational diet. So every day they're getting something different. It should always be wet. It should never be dry. Do not leave the dry food down there for them to munch on and graze, because what you're really doing is upsetting the whole digestive system. And the reason that they have a tendency to graze a little bit at a time is because they know that's not what they're supposed to have. They're just trying to stay alive. And of course, the other thing is, environmental toxins. Make sure you get good cleaning products that are safe, essentially then you will have a healthy cat. And when you notice that something is off, correct it then. Don't run to the veterinarian, because they don't know anything except drugs, and that's just going to make that body more toxic.
I say they should run to Bill at My Paleo Pet. That's what I say.
That's what I say too.
How would they do that?
Well, they can contact me, obviously, through My Paleo Pet, which is our retail store, and our website for commercial stuff. And the numbers are all up there on the website itself. Also through Pet Health Cafe, which is my podcast, educational, every single week, brand new episodes, available 24/7 on YouTube and a number of other venues. When you go onto the website as well, on the My Paleo Pet one, there's also a media center for the hundreds of magazine articles I've written over the years, on all of this. So you've got the topics there. And of course, a lot of this also extends onto the pet parents. That's an important thing. If we don't keep the pet parents healthy, they don't have any understanding then. And, you see it in our kids, they just keep getting fast food. That's what pet food is, fast food. And they don't thrive. Cats should be living 20, 30, even longer in a good state. Now, if a cat hits like 15, they think it's a major, major accomplishment.
Yeah, I know somebody, their cat just passed away at 17, and they're like, wow, what a long life the cat had.
Yeah, it's really not. It's really not a long life. And you have to wonder, because of the cat foods and that sort of thing, how much of that was what we, like an ultimate state of health, where they're not in pain, where they're not, having digestive issues, going blind, going deaf. All these things are all signs of toxicity.
Yeah, totally. Well, you are a superhero for our pets out there. And everybody's got to go check out mypaleopet.com, check out Pet Health Cafe, wealth of information. Tune in next Monday on the Positively Pipeman segment of the Adventures of Pipeman, where we will now switch gears to dog nutrition and talk about that. Stay tuned for the rest of the show. We are going to have some ticket giveaways for music festivals, and we're going to have some powerful business strategies for you. So stick with us, and we'll be right back.
Louder Than Life, North America's loudest rock and metal festival, returns to Louisville this September with My Chemical Romance, Iron Maiden, Tool, Limp Bizkit, plus Pantera, Pierce the Veil, Gojira, Papa Roach, and more. Nearly 200 bands across 7 stages. Louder Than Life at the Kentucky Expo Center, September 17th through 20th. Passes are on sale now, starting at only $1 down at louderthanlifefestival.com. Aftershock, the West Coast's largest rock, metal, and punk festival, returns to Sacramento this October with My Chemical Romance, Tool, Limp Bizkit, Pierce the Veil, plus Suicide Boys, Queens of the Stone Age, The Offspring, A Day to Remember, Wu-Tang Clan, and more. Aftershock, October 1st through 4th. Passes are on sale now, starting at only $1 down at aftershockfestival.com.
Hey, you're listening to The Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY Radio.
This is the Pipeman here on the Adventures of Pipeman, W4CY Radio. And once again, I'm here with our resident expert with some powerful business strategies on the Positively Pipeman segment of the Adventures of Pipeman here on W4CY Radio. So let's welcome to the show Michael Barbarita from Next Step CFO. How are you?
Fantastic, Dave. Thanks for having me again. So today we're going to talk about mindset.
My favorite subject.
There you go. A couple of weeks ago, I talked about the critical 6 things that you have to have if you're going to scale and grow your business. And one of them was mindset. And it's probably it's clearly one of the most difficult things that a business owner has to face, because the mindset that it took to go from 0 to 250,000 as an example, it's a completely different mindset needed to go from 250 to $1 million and $1 million to $3 million. And part of that mindset is less reliance on you. Part of it.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's so important is that in order to grow, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable, because changes in mindset that are required to grow are uncomfortable, just totally uncomfortable. And if you're comfortable right now, you're probably not growing. And so I have clients, for example, that are real comfortable where they are. The problem is, if business declines and so forth, they've got to deal with that because they're not growing. and they've got to deal with that stress. But all in all, they're comfortable because they don't have to hire employees necessarily. They don't have to change what they're doing necessarily, and they're able to get referrals to grow their to not grow their business, but to maintain status quo, and everything's just running along, and they're comfortable.
Yeah.
And that's not a good place for a business owner to be. You have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because in order to go from that 250 to $1 million or $1 million to $3 million, there's a lot of changes that you have to make, and change is uncomfortable. Change is really uncomfortable. And it's uncomfortable for a lot of business owners. But unless they can get uncomfortable and be comfortable with that discomfort, they're not going to grow. They're not going to progress. They're not going to be able to get out of their own way. And their business is going to stagnate, which the problem with stagnating businesses is inflation. And maybe they can increase their prices according to inflation and so forth. But normally comfortable business owners who don't really want to change their mindset to grow don't even increase prices.
Mm-hmm.
So, because they're comfortable doing what they're doing.
Yeah, you don't succeed in comfort.
That's the issue. That is the issue of the show. That's the problem that business owners have. There's a lot of when they start working with me, they start getting uncomfortable. And I tell them in advance, I said, you're going to be uncomfortable. If you want to grow, you're going to be uncomfortable. And it's got, because there's things that you have to do that are different than what you've been doing. In order for you to implement business and financial strategies that your competition isn't doing, which is basically what we help business owners with in a nutshell, it's going to be uncomfortable because it's change.
Yeah.
And change is uncomfortable. And it's going against the grain a little bit. If you're just copying your competition, that doesn't feel like you're going against the grain. But when you do something different than your competitors, that feels like it's going against the grain.
Yeah.
I mean, the mindset that we had to have when we did a risk reversal where ski the ski 3 times, you don't like it, bring it back for a brand new pair. That took a shift in mindset because the employees didn't like it. Their mindset was always, the same. And so they didn't like it. But it's up to the ownership to make the decision to implement something like that and take the calculated risk. And it's uncomfortable, and no one else is doing it, and it's uncomfortable. And there's a school of thought out there: if no one else is doing it, then it can't be good.
that's usually when companies come out of nowhere and blow away everybody.
Right. That's right.
And I think mindset is important in every aspect of life, no matter what you're doing, because your mindset will also determine what happens next, whether it be limiting beliefs or success, and even in simple little things that you wouldn't think matter.
Business owners' minds are full of fear, doubt, limiting beliefs, as you mentioned. Excuses. So fear, doubt, excuses, limiting beliefs. These are the mindset shifts that I have to help business owners with in order to implement the strategies that the competition isn't doing that's going to allow them to get to the next level.
Exactly. And I'll even give a personal example of how it works, because it just came up in conversation last night when I was at a restaurant and talking to the people next to me because the hockey game was on. Yeah. And a few years ago, when I was with my skating coach, he said something to me that I took as a compliment that was not a compliment. And he was like, "You never fall." And I'm like, "Thanks." And he's like, "No, not thank you. Because the fact is if you're not falling, that means you're not taking any risks and you're never going to get better."
Right.
And that really is true of anything you do in life, business or personal. That's why they always say no risk, no reward.
Right. And sometimes it doesn't work out, and that's okay.
Exactly. But
refresh.
Maybe it works out in a better way that you take that risk, you find out it failed, and so now you try a different risk that does succeed.
Right.
That's my opinion.
I totally agree with that. You find out one way that doesn't work so that you can have another opportunity to what does.
I mean, let's look at a perfect example. Post-its. Post-its are like one of the biggest mistakes that ever happened in history that became one of the biggest successes ever.
I know.
You know?
Yeah.
They were trying to make the strongest glue on earth, and it ended up into Post-its instead of the strongest glue on earth. So, you know, you got to take those risks. Look at inventors, you know, Edison. He failed at like at least 1,000 inventions before he invented the light bulb.
Unbelievable. Yeah, no, that's absolutely. And, you know, I forgot how many times he failed. There's a recorded number of how many times he failed.
Right. Look at KFC. Colonel Sanders went across the whole country to 1,000 different places and got turned down before KFC was born.
Right. 1,009 to be exact. He counted.
See? And Ray Kroc. Another story. Right. And look at this. You take those two people alone, and they were like 65, 66 at the time, which mindset would deem you're not going to create one of the biggest successes of your life at that stage in life. Right. But there it is. It happens quite often.
That's right. Colonel sold at 72.
Wow.
Yeah. But he started it, but he got tracked. His traction began at 66.
Yep. And then Ray Kroc, 65, I think it was.
Right.
So there it is. You got to look at those examples. History repeats itself. Look at the positive examples, the mindset of the successful examples, not the mindset of the failures.
That's right. Absolutely.
Well,
that's how it's done.
There it is. How do people reach out to you for more mindset that they need to succeed in business?
Well, they start by going to nextstepcfo.net, and in the upper right-hand corner, there's an orange button that says Find Hidden Revenue in Less Than 10 Minutes. And what that is, it's an AI diagnostic. And it will, in less than 10 minutes, it will spit out 3 strategies that your competition isn't doing, and the financial impact that those 3 strategies would have, along with a summary implementation plan. And that's all free. And so you go to nextstepcfo.net, you click on the orange button that says Find Hidden Revenue in Less Than 10 Minutes, and you're on your way, because it's just a great opportunity for you to understand the revenue that's hiding in your business.
It is so important, and I'm so glad we had you on here once again to help our businesses. You are our resident expert for a reason, and people need to reach out to Michael Barbarita and Next Step CFO for more business strategies. If this one isn't the one you need, there's plenty of others that he can help you with, and their organization can, so you can succeed in 2026 and beyond. We'll see you next month.
Thank
Michael.
You. Yes, that's right. Thank you, Dean. Look forward to it.
Thank you for listening to the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY Radio.